Daf Yomi, Tractate Sanhedrin, page 44b, top of the page with the words Amar Le. Amar Le, Emesh bitaltim tamid shel ben harbaim, ועכשיו bitaltim tamidtoire. Al איזה מהן באת? Amar Le, ata bati. The Gemara understands the words of the angel that Joshua encountered as a rebuke for some offense Joshua committed. The angel said to Joshua, "Yesterday, in the afternoon, you neglected sacrificing the daily afternoon offering because you were engaged in warfare. And now, when it is dark, you neglected Torah study." Joshua asked him, "For which of these sins have you come to reprove me?" The angel said to him, "I have now come," meaning the fact that I did not come before but waited until now, when it is dark, indicates that the sin of neglecting Torah study is the more severe one. Miyad v'yalen Yehoshua b'layla ahu b'toch ha'emek v'amar b'yochel melamed shelan be'umka shel halacha. Joshua immediately acted to rectify the matter by deciding that he must devote more time to Torah study, as it is stated, and Joshua lodged that night, Joshua 8:9, into the midst of the valley, ha'emek, Joshua 8:13, vayalen Yehoshua b'layla hahu b'toch ha'emek. Joshua 8:9. It's a good one. It's 89. What's the gematria of that? We're going to find out momentarily. Check it out. Vayalan Yehoshua b'layla hahu b'toch ha'emek, 12:24. In Atbash, it's 20:20. That's a good one. That we got to do, guys. Okay. Okay. Betoch ha'emek, into the midst of the valley. Rabbi Yochanan says this teaches that he lodged all night in the depth, the omek of halacha, thereby atoning for his previous neglect of Torah study. Amar Shmuel bar Inya Mishmei Rav Gadol Talmud Torah Yoser Me'akravas Tamidin Shnemar Atabati. Shmuel bar Inya says in the name of Rav, Torah study is greater than sacrificing daily offerings. As it is stated, I have now come, demonstrating that neglect of Torah study is more serious offense than neglect of the daily offerings. Okay? Amar le Abaye l'Avdimi Hai kro b'marav mo k'mitule Al tetzi lariv mehar pen ma ta'aseh b'achrita be'achlim otcha recha rivcha riv et recha v'sodachar al tigal. Abaye said to Rav Dimi, who ascended from Babylon from Eretz Yisrael, how do you explain the verse? This verse in the west, meaning Eretz Yisrael. Do you proceed hastily to litigation, lest you know not what to do in the end of it? When your neighbor has put you to shame, debate your cause with your neighbor, and do not reveal the secret of another. Proverbs 25:8 and 9. Bishash Amar Lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Li'Yechezkel Lech Emor Lahem Li'Yisrael Avicha ha'emori V'mechitit Amra Ruach Hiskoines Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ribono Shel Olam אם יבואו אברהם ושרה ויעמדו לפניך, אתה אוהב אליהם ומאכלים ויסם. Rivcha rivet recha v'sod acher al tage. Rav Dimi explained as follows. At the time that the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Ezekiel, "Go say to Israel, your father was an Amorite and your mother was a Hittite." Ezekiel 16:3. The spirit, Paskonit, which is another name for the angel Gabriel. Interesting. Paskonit. Said before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, were the patriarch Abraham and the matriarch Sarah to come now and stand before you, would you speak to them in such a manner and put them to shame? Is it not stated, debate your cause with your neighbor, and do not reveal the secret of another? Umais l'reshus kulihai in. Tamar Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina, shilosh shemos yeshno, piskon, itmon, sigron. Piskon sheposek devarim klape mala. Itmon sheotem avonotehen shel Yisrael. Sigron kivan shesoger shuv eno poteach. The Gemara asks, but does the angel Gabriel have so much authority that he can reprove God in such a manner? The Gemara answers yes. As Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, says, he, the angel Gabriel, has three names, Piskon, Itmon, and Sigron. He is called Piskon because he splits words and argues with God on high. He is called Itmon because he conceals She'otem, the sins of the Jewish people, and he is called Sigron because once he closes his arguments on behalf of the Jewish people, no one reopens a discussion. Hayaroch shuarcha v'lo batzar ve'am Rabbi Elazar le'olam yakdim odam tefila letzara shilam alei yakdim ve'Avraham tefila letzara ben Bet El u'ben ha'ai lo nishtar misonohen shel Yisrael sorry the palit Reish Lakish Amar Kol meisas tefila milmata ein lo yitzori milmalo Yochanan Amar le'olam yivakesh odom rachamim shiyu hakol me'amtsin et koichoi ve'al yu lo tzor milmala. The verse states, had you prepared your prayers before your troubles came? Job 36:19. Rabbi Elazar says, a person should always offer a prayer before trouble actually arrives, as had the patriarch Abraham not anticipated the trouble at Ai, with the prayer he offered between Bethel and Ai, there would have been no remnant or refugee remaining among the enemies of Israel, which is a euphemism for Israel itself. As Israel suffered defeat at Ai, from which there is ordinarily no recovery. It's interesting that there were 36 casualties, and this verse is actually in Job 36. It's interesting. That's interesting. Reish Lakish says the verse should be understood Haya'aroch shuacha lo betzar. Lo betzar. Reish Lakish says the verse should be understood as follows. Anyone who concentrates himself and his energy in prayer in the world below will have no enemies in heaven above causing him trouble. Rabbi Yochanan says the verse should be understood in a slightly different manner. A person should always pray for mercy, that all heavenly beings should strengthen his power of prayer, and that he should have no enemies causing him trouble in heaven above. Minyan Shikiper lo viduyav. Okay, good. Minayin shikiper lo viduyav v'chule. Tanura bana minayin shikiper lo vidui. Shene'emar v'yom lo Yehoshua ma'achar tanu. Yarchkecha Hashem hayom hazeh ata'achur. V'yeh ata'achur le'olam haba. Chsiv v'nizar zimri v'esan Heman Chalkol Vedalda Kulam Chamisha. My Kulam Chamisha. The Mishnah teaches, from where is it derived that Achan's confession achieved atonement for him? The sages taught likewise in the Brayta, from where is it derived that Achan's confession achieved atonement for him? As it is stated, and Joshua said, why have you brought trouble on us? The Lord shall trouble you this day. Joshua 7:25. Joshua said to Achan, on this day of your judgment you are troubled, but you will not be troubled in the world to come. And elsewhere it is written, the sons of Zerach were Zimri, and Eitan, and Heman, and Kalkol, and Dara, 5 of them in all. 1 Chronicles 2:6. What do the words 5 of them in all serve to teach? All 5 sons are destined to receive a share in the world to come. Zerach, the sons of Zerach were Zimri, and Eitan, and Heman, and Kalkol, and Dara. So Zimri is Achan, I guess, yeah. According to the sages, Zimri is Achan, son of Zerah. As will be explained, since Achan has a share in the world to come, his confession must have achieved atonement for him. Zimri Achan. Rav Shmuel, Chadamar Achan Shemo, Velama Nikra Shemo Zimri, Sha'asa Ma'aseh Zimri. Echad Amar Zimri Shemo, Velama Nikra Shemo Achan, She'iken Avonotehen Shel Yisrael. In one place, among the 5 sons of Zerach, is written Zimri, without any mention of Achan. 1 Chronicles 2:6. And another place is written, and Joshua took Achan, son of Zerach. Joshua 7:24. Rav and Shmuel both say that Zimri and Achan are one and the same, but they disagree about his real name. One of them says his real name was Achan. Why then was he called Zimri? He was called Zimri because he acted like Zimri. Meaning, just as Zimri engaged in sexual intercourse with the Midianite woman, Achan engaged in intercourse with a betrothed young woman. And the other one says his real name was Zimri. Why was he called Achan? He was called Achan because he acted like a snake. An achna, yeah. And he caused the punishment of the sins of the Jewish people. Im en yodea litvadot, kule Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kule, linakot atzman v'inaku atzman, כדי שלהוציא לעז על בתי דינין ועל העדים. The Mishnah teaches that if the condemned man does not know how to confess, they say to him, say simply, let my death be an atonement for all my sins. Or Yehuda says that if he knows that he was wrongfully convicted, he should say, let my death be an atonement for all my sins except for this sin. The sages counter that if such a confession is acceptable, anyone who is sentenced to execution would state it to clear himself in the eyes of the public. No, not necessarily, because he's still going to be punished in heaven. What does he care about the public if in the heaven it's going to be worse for him? Anyway, the Gemara challenges, let them clear themselves. Why should the court intervene? If the condemned man wishes to proclaim his innocence, the Gemara answers they intervene so as not to cast aspersions on the courts and on the witnesses who testified against him. Tanu Rabbanan Maseva Adam Echad Shiyatzeh Lehareg Amar Im Yesh Bi Avon Ze Lo Te Misasi Kapara Lechol Avonoisai V'im Ein Bi Avon Ze Tehe Misasi Kapara Lechol Avonoisai Bezdin Lechol Yisrael Menukin V'Eidim Lo Tehe Lahem Lechila L'Olam Cheshishamu Chachamim Bedavar Amru Lachziro Efshar Shekavar Nigzor Gzera Eli Hareg V'Yehei Kolar Talui Bitzavar Eidim. Sages taught an incident occurred involving a person who was being taken out to be executed after having been convicted by the court. He said, if I committed this sin for which I am being executed, let my death not be an atonement for all my sins, But if I did not commit this sin, if I committed this sin, for which I'm being executed, let my death not be atonement for all my sins. But if I did not commit this sin for which I am being put to death, let my death be atonement for all my sins. Why can't the death be atonement for all the sins? Why is he excluding? I don't know. And the court that convicted me and all the people of Israel are clear of responsibility, but the witnesses who testified falsely against me will never be forgiven. And when the sages heard this, they said, it is impossible to bring him back to court and reconsider the verdict, as the decree has already been decreed. Rather, he shall be executed, and the chain of responsibility for his wrongful execution hangs around the necks of the witnesses, meaning they'll get punishment min shamayim. Pshita kol k'mina lo tzricha dika hadari behu sahadi. Gemara asks, isn't it obvious that he should be executed? Is it in his power to have his sentence overturned just because he says he's innocent? The Gemara answers, no, it is necessary to state that the condemned man is executed even when the witnesses retracted their testimony. V'chi hadri behu mai havi kevan shehigid shuv eno choizer umagid lo tzricha di'afal gav dikayahim taima lemilsayu kiyahu maseh debayu mochsa. The Gemara asks, even if the witnesses retract their testimony, or as in Britain they say testimony, what of it? Is it still clear that the condemned man is to be executed? As the halacha is that once a witness has stated his testimony, he may not then state a revision of that testimony. In other words, a witness's retraction of his testimony has no validity. The Gemara answers, no. It is necessary to state that the condemned man is executed even when the witnesses retracted their testimony and gave an explanation for having lied in their initial statement. This is like that incident involving Baya, the tax collector, where it was discovered that witnesses had falsely accused the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach in revenge for having sentenced to death for sorcery the witnesses' relatives. This is like the incident involving Bea the tax collector, where it was discovered that witnesses had falsely accused the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach in revenge for the son's having sentenced to death for sorcery of the witnesses' relatives. Tibaya mochsa. Wow. That's the end of that. A new Mishnah. At the bottom of the Amud, Mishnah says, Hayarachok mi beis haskila arba amos. Mavshit inoso es bigadav. V'ya'ish michas inoso milefanav v'ya'ish milefanea v'yacharea. Tivrei Rav Yehuda. V'chachamim ma'imrim ha'ish niskal arom. V'ein ha'ish niskal es aroma. When the condemned man, the Mishnah says, when the condemned man is at the distance of 4 cubits from the place of stoning, they take off his clothes. They cover a man's genitals in the front, and a woman is covered both in the front and in the back. This is a statement of Rabbi Yehuda. But the rabbis say a man is stone naked, wearing only the cloth covering. But a woman is not stone naked, but is stone well clothed.